call.
Without objection.
And, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the following interns in my office be granted floor privileges until May 9th, 2024. They are Georgina Wrigley, Jessica Yang, and Elizabeth Michael.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Every 5 years, Congress has the responsibility to fully fund the Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board to ensure airports across the country have the resources they need to bolster security measures and fulfill costs associated with meeting the demands of both national and global travel. As the Cowboy State continues growing, making sure the people of Wyoming have reliable, safe, and affordable access to travel is critical to maintaining our state's economy. The FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024 stands to not only further boost our thriving tourism industry, but eliminates burdensome regulations that challenge small airports across Wyoming and across the nation. For more than a year, I've fought to ensure that millions of Wyoming's tax dollars sent to Washington will be put to work to improve air travel across Wyoming. Wyoming is small to many small airports that serve what would otherwise be isolated parts of our state. This bill reauthorizes the essential air service that supports flights for Cody and Laramie and increases funding for the program that multiple Wyoming airports use for capital projects. And as you know, Mr. President, Cody is the east entrance to Yellowstone National Park. It is home to the Buffalo Bill Historical Center, which is a world-class museum, and it is an important tourism and art destination. And Laramie is the home of the University of Wyoming and many activities that improve our nation, including efforts at carbon sequestration technologies. These are communities that need air transportation. The bill counters federal overreach that has threatened to burden airports by slapping them with multi-million-dollar expenses following arbitrary changes to federal funding criteria for airport runways and taxiways, or plunge essential renovations into sort of a regulatory purgatory. But thanks to critical improvements in this FAA reauthorization, not only will the Rock Springs Airport be spared from arbitrary new FAA requirements to pay for the upkeep of runways and taxiways, but Wyoming airports can now move forward with projects costing less than $6 million in federal funds without being subject to unnecessary red tape. These are the sizes of airports that we have in Wyoming. And to have these regulatory burdens and shackles taken off so these airports can improve runways and taxiways, which are essential to having an operational airport, is a true benefit of this bill. I want to thank the full committee, and I want to thank the chair and the ranking member for understanding the importance of our small airports. For too long, Congress has delivered FAA reauthorization bills that prioritize big aviation and overlook the needs of our rural airports. But this bill takes many of those rural airports into consideration. States like Wyoming rely on small airports to support entire regions of our state, and previous versions of this bill have reflected that misunderstanding. The bill we have in front of us fixes that misunderstanding. I am very, very pleased with how the treatment of small airports in this bill considered the needs of those small airports. While we work to meet the needs of the nation's largest airports, we cannot forget the small ones that work hard to serve rural America, and we have a responsibility to make sure this bill creates an environment where they can thrive and not just struggle to survive. My provisions included in this legislation help airports like Casper-Natrona International address air traffic control staffing shortages and waive unrealistic rules that require EMTs to be on site at every airport when rural areas are already grappling with medical personnel shortages. Unfortunately, these aren't the only challenges Wyoming airports face. My Western colleagues and I know better than anyone how critical these small airports are, not only for serving our rural communities, but also in fighting wildfires. Wildfires continue to devastate our western habitats, and we need every tool readily available to mitigate the damage. Yet current regulatory hurdles dramatically slow response times. Every minute wasted trying to gain access to restricted airspace results in irreparable damage to wildlife, homes, and may even cost lives. My provision to this legislation eliminates costly hurdles to fighting wildfires and establishes a reimbursement program for airport sponsors to replace firefighting agents and equipment that meet military specifications. This legislation is a win for the state of Wyoming that will offer much needed support for our small airports and bolster our economy. Together, we have created a bipartisan and workable reauthorization that improves access to our nation's capital for all Americans, eliminating onerous regulations, and creates an environment where smaller airports can do more than just survive. I want to thank the members of the Commerce Committee, including you, Mr. President. I want to thank Chair Cantwell and Ranking Member Cruz, who worked together to create a bipartisan work product of which the committee can be proud, and they have prepared this FAA reauthorization for bipartisan passage. Mr. President, I yield the floor.